Hey, stop right there. Deliveries go around back.
I'm not a delivery guy. I'm here for the leadership meeting.
Leadership? You mean janitor briefing or what?
No, I'm the new chief operations officer.
Wait, you're the COO?
Yeah. Next time, try asking before judging.
For 14 years, Marcus Webb worked corporate security across San Francisco's downtown corridor, spending the last decade stationed at the gleaming headquarters of Apex Investment Group, a financial powerhouse managing assets worth billions. During those 10 years, he accumulated 11 formal complaints on his record. 11 documented occasions where professionals of color, Black executives, Latino entrepreneurs, Asian consultants, found themselves stopped, interrogated, and turned away from upper-level floors because Webb determined they didn't fit the profile. Each complaint vanished into administrative files, labeled as procedural confusion. Building supervisors praised his attentiveness. His managers commended his diligence. Nobody acknowledged what everyone could see. His decisions followed a pattern rooted in prejudice. On a Wednesday morning in San Francisco's financial heart, Marcus Webb's protected status collapsed entirely. Dr. Michael Chen had just stepped onto the plaza outside 601 Montgomery Street, preparing for the meeting that would transform Apex Investment Group's entire organizational framework. He'd been brought on as the company's first chief inclusion officer following a devastating discrimination case and federal scrutiny that exposed the firm's deeply problematic workplace environment. Dr. Chen held a doctorate in organizational behavior from Berkeley, had spent 18 years advising major corporations on structural reform, authored peer-reviewed studies examining institutional bias in leadership selection, contributed analysis to prominent business journals, and provided expert testimony to federal committees. That morning, though, he was simply an Asian American man wearing chinos and a sport coat, carrying a canvas work bag. To Marcus Webb, the calculation was instant. Contractor, technician, service personnel, definitely not someone heading to executive territory. That snap judgment set off a chain of events ending in Webb's firing, a recorded confrontation viewed 50 million times online, and a $4 million settlement for unlawful detention. If you're new to this channel, go ahead and subscribe right now because these accounts deserve attention, and every subscription helps us continue exposing the truth. San Francisco's financial district rises in steel and glass where fog rolls through canyons of corporate towers and enormous sums transfer through digital networks and closed-door negotiations. The building at 601 Montgomery stood 48 floors high, housing banking institutions, legal practices, investment operations, and advisory firms. 3 separate entry points served different functions. The primary lobby welcomed employees and scheduled visitors. The loading dock accommodated deliveries and facility services. The premium entrance granted access to senior leadership and board-level personnel. Dr. Michael Chen approached the premium entrance at 9:12 on Wednesday morning. Sunlight was cutting through the marine layer. Sidewalks filled with suited professionals and casually dressed tech industry workers. The premium entrance featured polished stone flooring, gold-toned metalwork, and a security station where officers regulated access to restricted floors. Dr. Chen was 43 years old. His entire professional focus centered on studying how unexamined prejudice influences institutional decisions, how competency assumptions align with demographic categories, how access gets controlled not through official rules but through instantaneous judgments made by individuals who've never questioned their internal biases. He'd published 4 books addressing these dynamics. He'd worked with 71 organizations. He'd developed training frameworks implemented across hundreds of workplaces. That morning, he was about to experience firsthand the exact phenomenon he'd dedicated his career to dismantling. Apex Investment Group had hired him 7 weeks earlier after resolving a substantial discrimination lawsuit. 4 employees of color had brought legal action alleging systematic barriers to advancement, toxic workplace conditions, and punishment for raising concerns. The matter concluded with an $8.3 million settlement. Settlement terms required hiring an external chief inclusion officer with complete independence to investigate operations, propose systemic reforms, and communicate findings directly to board leadership. Dr. Chen filled that position. His initial comprehensive briefing to executive leadership was set for 9:30. He'd invested significant preparation, documentation of recruitment trends, examination of advancement statistics across demographics, compiled feedback from confidential staff conversations, proposals for institutional restructuring. His laptop held his presentation files, his briefing materials, his board authorization. He arrived 18 minutes ahead of schedule, his preferred approach. He walked toward the premium entrance dressed in navy chinos, a tan sport coat over a pale blue Oxford shirt, suede loafers, carrying a canvas messenger bag. Professional yet relaxed, consistent with his personal style. He'd never believed in performing deference simply to ease others' discomfort. Marcus Webb stood watch at the security station just beyond the premium entrance doors. Watching Dr. Chen approach through the glass, his mind processed information automatically. Asian man, informal attire, messenger bag, wrong presentation, wrong appearance, likely maintenance work, certainly not executive material. Webb moved forward and cracked the door partially, creating a physical barrier. Hold on there. You doing a repair call? This entrance doesn't handle service appointments. Dr. Chen stopped moving. He'd navigated this situation previously, not frequently in recent years, but sufficiently to recognize the dynamic immediately. The presumption, the rerouting, the casual barrier setting that emerged when someone decided your presence disrupted the space you intended to enter. I'm not here for repairs. I have an appointment on the 19th floor. Webb's attention shifted to the canvas bag, then returned to Dr. Chen's expression. Appointment for what? Building systems? There it was, the assumption that an Asian man heading to the 19th floor, where Apex maintained its executive operations, must be accessing facilities equipment, not entering the boardroom, not consulting with leadership, certainly not briefing the people directing a $30 billion investment portfolio. Dr. Chen maintained an even tone. No, I'm meeting with executive board leadership. Webb produced a sound somewhere between a laugh and a dismissal, conveying total skepticism. The board? No way, man. You've got the wrong entrance. You're not authorized for those floors. Dr. Chen experienced the predictable combination of irritation and professional curiosity. This represented precisely what his research documented: the unwavering certainty people exhibited making unfounded assumptions, the confidence they felt determining who belonged in which spaces, the absolute blindness to their own prejudicial thinking. Is that right? What makes you say that? Webb shifted position, his certainty wavering slightly. His expression changed as he struggled to articulate a rationale. He possessed no concrete reason, just an instinct, a gut response, an immediate sense that this man in casual clothes with a bag couldn't possibly be accessing executive territory. Just seems obvious to me. The uncertainty in his delivery revealed everything. He understood he lacked legitimate justification. He simply felt it. And throughout his career, that feeling had always sufficed. Dr. Chen's voice took on a sharper, more clinical edge. No, you made an assumption. And that assumption is exactly the issue I'm here to examine today. Should security personnel be required to cite specific policy violations before restricting someone's access? Share your perspective in the comments. Webb's demeanor hardened. Confronted, his ego engaged. Listen, I don't care who you think you are, but I'm going to need identification and confirmation of your appointment before you move anywhere. Dr. Chen reached into his messenger bag with deliberate, visible movements. I'm retrieving my identification now. My name is Dr. Michael Chen. I serve as Chief Inclusion Officer for Apex Investment Group. I began this position 7 weeks ago. I have a 9:30 briefing scheduled with the executive board regarding the systemic discrimination problems this organization faces. And you've just handed me a perfect live demonstration. He extracted his wallet and removed his Apex employee credential. The card displayed his photograph, his full name, his job title, and an authorization code granting him unrestricted access throughout the building, including all executive zones. He displayed it clearly. Webb examined it, actually studied it. His expression shifted subtly as reality began penetrating his presumptions. Could be a temporary visitor credential. I need to confirm with someone upstairs. Dr. Chen's patience was eroding. This is a permanent employee credential, not a visitor pass. Employee status. It shows my photograph, my identity, and my access authorization. You can verify it immediately at your station. The system will confirm I hold executive-level clearance. I still need to make a verification call. Then make your call, but recognize that you stopped me because you assumed an Asian man in casual clothes couldn't possibly be attending an executive board briefing. You didn't request identification initially. You didn't check your verification system. You led with repair work and building systems. That's not security procedure. That's demographic profiling. Webb's complexion reddened. I'm just performing my duties. Your duty involves verifying credentials, not forming assumptions based on physical appearance. Had you requested my identification first, this conversation wouldn't be happening. But you didn't. You determined I didn't belong before learning anything about me. A small group had begun gathering. Additional employees entering through the premium entrance. A woman in business attire, 2 men with attaché cases. They decelerated, observing the confrontation. Someone extracted their phone and began filming. Webb noticed the growing audience. His voice lowered. Sir, I need you to step away while I verify your credentials. I'm not stepping away. Scan my credential. Make your verification call. Do whatever your protocol requires, but I'm staying right here until you confirm what I've already explained. Webb returned to his security station, Dr. Chen's credential in hand. He scanned it through the reader. The computer emitted a confirmation tone. Green indicator. Access approved. Executive authorization. Dr. Michael Chen. Chief Inclusion Officer. Hired 7 weeks prior. Active employment status. The display showed everything Dr. Chen had stated was accurate. Webb stared at the monitor, reality registering. He'd blocked a senior executive. He'd assumed the person was a technician. He'd questioned their authorization to be present, and he'd done it before witnesses holding recording devices. Dr. Chen approached the security station. Does your system confirm my statement? Webb's response came tightly. Yes, you're authorized. And my job title reads what? Chief Inclusion Officer. Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly, his voice quiet but incisive. Let me pose a question, Officer Webb. He noted the nameplate on the desk. When you observe a white man in casual clothes carrying a bag, do you assume he's a technician or do you assume he might be an executive, an entrepreneur, someone employed here? Webb offered no response. I'm just doing my job. No, you're doing something different. You're enforcing an unspoken hierarchy based on your expectations of appearance. And that's precisely why I'm here, to demonstrate how bias functions within this company's systems, how it manifests at every operational level, how security officers determine who appears to belong and who doesn't. Congratulations, you just volunteered to become my opening example. Dr. Chen reclaimed his credential. I'm proceeding to my meeting now, but I require your complete name, your personnel identification number, and your supervisor's contact details because this encounter will be documented, reported, and featured in my board presentation beginning in approximately 8 minutes. Webb had gone pale. Sir, I was simply exercising caution. Caution regarding what? I'm a middle-aged professional in business, casual, carrying a work bag. What specific concern did you identify? What risk did you perceive? Or did you simply see an Asian man and decide he didn't belong? The woman in business attire spoke up. I witnessed everything. She'd been positioned nearby, observing. He blocked you before you reached the entrance. Didn't ask for identification. Just assumed you were service personnel. Dr. Chen acknowledged her. Thank you. Would you be willing to provide a formal statement? Absolutely. I work on 21. I've seen Dr. Chen's profile in the company directory. This was completely inappropriate. Another voice from the expanding group. I got it recorded. The individual with the phone. The entire exchange. Want me to forward it? Please do. Dr. Chen produced his business card. My contact information is there. This is exactly the kind of evidence we need. Should profiling encounters be incorporated into mandatory organizational training? Drop your thoughts below. Webb realized the situation was escalating beyond his control. Sir, perhaps we can address this privately. There's nothing to address privately. You profiled me. You assumed I didn't belong. You challenged my right to enter a facility where I'm employed, and you did it because of how I appear. That's not a private issue. That's a systemic pattern, and I intend to expose it. Dr. Chen moved past the security station toward the elevator bank. The small crowd parted. Several followed him, speaking among themselves. One person called out, "Welcome to Apex, Dr. Chen. Apologies for what happened." By the time Dr. Chen arrived on the 19th floor, information had already circulated. An executive assistant intercepted him at the elevator. "Dr. Chen, I'm deeply sorry. We learned what occurred downstairs. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but your security officer just gave me a textbook demonstration of the bias I'm here to address. Is the board prepared?" "They're ready, and they'll definitely want to hear about this." Dr. Chen entered the boardroom at 9:27. 14 executives arranged around an ebony conference table. The chief executive, the chief financial officer, the chief operating officer, division leaders, board members. They'd all reviewed his preliminary assessment. They understood his purpose. What they didn't anticipate was that he now possessed a live example that had occurred 40 minutes earlier. "Good morning," Dr. Chen began, placing his bag on the table and opening his laptop. "I was brought on to identify and confront systemic bias within this organization. I've spent 7 weeks conducting interviews, examining data, and reviewing institutional policies. I had planned to open this briefing with statistical analysis, but instead I'm beginning with what happened to me 13 minutes ago when I attempted to enter this facility." He opened his laptop and accessed the video that had already reached his inbox. The footage captured everything: Webb blocking him at the entrance, the repair work assumption, the building systems question, the assertion that Dr. Chen wasn't authorized, the dismissal of his credentials, the profiling exposed completely. The room watched silently. The chief executive's expression transformed from interested to appalled. The chief financial officer shut her eyes and shook her head. The chief operating officer muttered something inaudible. "This," Dr. Chen stated when the footage concluded, "is what bias looks like in action. Officer Webb didn't request my credentials. He didn't verify my appointment. He formed an assumption based on my appearance, my clothing, and his preconceived notions about who belongs in executive spaces. And when I challenged him, he escalated instead of correcting course. This isn't an isolated event. This is a symptom of a broader culture." The chief executive responded first. "Dr. Chen, on behalf of Apex Investment Group, I apologize. That should never have occurred. Apologies don't reform systems. Policy changes do. Training does. Accountability does. Your security contractor needs immediate notification. Officer Webb needs removal from this facility. And every security officer needs mandatory bias training with enforceable consequences for profiling. Consider it handled." The chief executive looked at his assistant. "Contact building management immediately. I want that officer removed today and arrange a meeting with the security contractor. This is unacceptable." Dr. Chen proceeded with his briefing. He presented the compiled evidence. Recruitment statistics by demographics showed significant imbalances. Advancement rates revealed that Black and Latino staff required an average of 3.1 years longer to reach management roles than white staff with equivalent credentials. Departure interview data indicated that 79% of Black employees who resigned cited hostile conditions or limited opportunities. Anonymous survey responses disclosed that 52% of employees of color had encountered some form of discrimination or bias within the previous year. The board listened. Some documented notes, others appeared uncomfortable, but they couldn't dispute what the evidence demonstrated. By the conclusion of the 100-minute briefing, Dr. Chen had obtained commitments for policy reforms, mandatory training programs, an independent review body for discrimination complaints, and budget allocation for sustained inclusion initiatives. As he gathered his laptop, the chief executive approached. "Dr. Chen, I want you to understand we take this seriously. What happened this morning confirms why we hired you." Dr. Chen nodded. "I appreciate that, but I need you to recognize something. I possessed credentials. I held a badge. I carried a title, and I still experienced profiling. Consider what happens to applicants who arrive here for interviews, to vendors who visit for consultations, to anyone who doesn't match someone's mental picture of what an Apex Investment Group person looks like. That's the culture we're transforming." Within hours, The video had spread beyond Apex Investment Group. Someone who'd received it shared it with colleagues, then with friends, then across social platforms. By that evening, it had 50,000 views. By the following morning, 5 million. By week's end, 50 million people had watched Dr. Michael Chen methodically dismantle Marcus Webb's assumptions and articulate precisely why those assumptions were harmful. The media coverage practically wrote itself. Chief Inclusion Officer profiled on first day at building entrance. Security officer assumes Asian executive is repair technician. Viral footage reveals real-time demographic profiling at SF investment firm. Marcus Webb was terminated within 72 hours. His employment with the security contractor ended. The security contractor itself lost the Apex Investment Group contract. A different firm was engaged with explicit requirements for bias training and accountability protocols. Dr. Chen filed a comprehensive complaint with building management and the security contractor. The complaint documented not just his encounter, but a pattern. He'd interviewed additional tenants, discovered 8 other incidents during the previous year where professionals of color had been stopped, questioned, or redirected by Marcus Webb. All had assumed it was standard building security procedure. None had filed formal complaints. The legal action came 9 weeks later, not solely from Dr. Chen, but from 4 additional plaintiffs who emerged after viewing the footage. All professionals. All stopped by the same officer. All profiled based on appearance. The allegations were clear: demographic profiling, civil rights violations, intentional infliction of emotional harm, negligent hiring and oversight by the security contractor. The security contractor settled within 5 months, $4 million divided among the 5 plaintiffs. Dr. Chen received $1.6 million. He contributed half to organizations combating workplace discrimination. Should companies face financial consequences for contractor personnel who engage in profiling? Share your opinion in the comments. Marcus Webb released a statement through legal counsel. I made a judgment error that day. I should have requested credentials before forming assumptions. I apologize to Dr. Chen and accept responsibility. Dr. Chen's response was public and deliberate. A judgment error implies a singular mistake, but the evidence reveals a pattern. Multiple people profiled across multiple years. That's not an error. That's a practice. And the fact that it required viral footage and legal action to stop it demonstrates how normalized this behavior had become. Apex Investment Group enacted comprehensive reforms. Every security officer completed mandatory bias training. New protocols mandated requesting credentials before forming any assumptions about access. A reporting line was created for documenting profiling incidents. Dr. Chen's responsibilities expanded. He received additional personnel, resources, and authority. Dr. Chen provided testimony before the San Francisco Board of Supervisors regarding discrimination in corporate settings. I didn't anticipate becoming the public face of this issue, he stated. I was simply trying to get to work. But what happened to me happens to countless people daily. The security officer who assumes you're in the wrong location. The receptionist who asks if you're there to interview when you're there to consult. The colleague who questions where you really work when you mention you're on the executive floor. These aren't isolated encounters. They're patterns revealing who we assume belongs in positions of authority and who we assume doesn't. He paused. I had a doctorate, a title, a credential, and 20 years of experience. And I still got blocked at the entrance. So consider what happens to people without those qualifications. People attempting to enter industries where they don't see others who look like them. People facing these assumptions at every stage. How many abandon the effort? How many internalize the message that they don't belong? How many never get through the entrance because someone like Marcus Webb decided they looked like service personnel? The footage became mandatory content in corporate inclusion training programs nationwide. Dr. Chen's measured dismantling of the assumptions became a template for responding to profiling. His insistence on documentation and accountability became a framework for workplace advocacy. But his core message remained constant. This isn't about me having credentials. This is about a system that permitted a security officer to profile people for years without consequence. This is about bias so normalized that blocking an Asian man at the entrance felt like security protocol. This is about assumptions operating beneath the level of policy but determining who gains access to opportunity. Marcus Webb's career in security is finished. That's consequence. The company paid $4 million. That's accountability. But financial penalties and terminations don't change the fact that I was profiled while heading to a meeting about profiling. They don't eliminate the thousands of other people facing similar assumptions without viral footage or settlements to validate their experiences. The real question is what changes now? Will companies finally audit their contractors for bias patterns? Will they finally acknowledge that gatekeeping happens not just through policy, but through the assumptions of people at entry points? Will they finally understand that inclusion initiatives mean nothing if people can't get through the entrance? Because if we don't fix the systems that allowed Marcus Webb to profile people for 14 years, if we don't address the bias that trains people to see an Asian man in casual clothes and assume he doesn't belong, if we don't hold companies accountable for the behavior of everyone representing them, then we're simply waiting for the next viral video, the next lawsuit, the next person who has to prove they belong in a space where they already work. Comment below if you believe security officers should face immediate termination after one documented profiling incident. And if you believe accounts like this deserve attention, if you think accountability matters and systemic change begins with exposure and documentation, then hit that subscribe button because we're going to continue sharing these accounts, we're going to keep demanding better, we're going to keep fighting for a world where a chief inclusion officer can enter his own building without being told he doesn't belong. This isn't just about one security officer or one executive. It's about all of us and the assumptions we're willing to challenge.